Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be working hips, low back with just a little bit of glute activation. Should be some decent core effort today. It's not going to be a core workout per se, but I do want to have some decent core engagement. So we'll be working through our inverted position, getting into some hip drive, and a little bit into the plank work that I introduced last week. So let's get started. We're going to start in our shin box position. I'm in my right side shin box, bringing right hand down to the floor. Nice grounding into that palm, spiraling that elbow out and away. I want to feel that shoulder blade sliding down and back so it lifts and opens the chest. I want to avoid being rounded through this upper back area. So feeling that arm spiral out, feel the shoulder blade pack down and back. We're going to start with just getting some nice breath into that abdominal wall area. I want to feel that breath move into the belly and out into the sides, especially the side of the with the arm where the arm is down to the ground. Can you feel that breath moving out and away as we exhale, drawing our navel into our spine? Notice if there's any stretch associated with that inhale breath. You can start to have some awareness of like, how do the hips feel? How does the low back feel? As we start to feel those breaths in, nice inhale, full exhale. We're going to get into a little bit of our knee openers. Slowly lifting that knee up to the ceiling as we exhale. Inhale, bringing that knee back to the floor. And we'll do this for 3 to 5 slow reps. I want to go slow with our breath. Exhale as we lift. Inhale into that crocodile breath as we lower it down. As we get to 3 to 5, I'm keeping my reps a little bit short because we're going to go back and forth on this one a couple times. Moving to the other side, grounding palm, spiraling elbow, packed shoulder, nice tall sternum. Starting with getting into that breath again, working on it on this side. Nice inhale into that abdominal wall. Exhale, drawing the navel up and into the spine. On the next inhale, as we exhale, slowly lifting that knee up to the ceiling. Bringing it down on the inhale, exhale, as we lift. Again, nice and slow. Once we get to 3, we're going to move back across. We're going to do the same thing, getting right into that nice big inhale. As we exhale, lifting that knee, and this time we're going to do 5. Inhale on as we drop that knee down. Exhale as we lift and really kind of squeezing into it at the top. I don't want to force it. I'm not pushing beyond what my body is able to get to, but I'm seeing if I can squeeze into that range of motion and get a little bit more open on each one. I want to avoid moving too much through the rest of the body. The only piece that is moving is this hip opening up. I don't want to feel a lot of shift or twisting and turning through my shoulders. I want to be pretty locked in through the rest of the body, only moving that hip. Once we do 5 on that side, coming back to the other side, we're going to do the same thing. Nice inhale, exhale as we lift and squeeze. Again, the slower we go, the better. With each one, we're seeing if we can get just a little bit more into that space of opening up that hip Notice, how does the right hip feel compared to the left hip? Do you have a little bit more range of motion on one side compared to the other? We're going to come back across to that first side. Again, grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, tall chest. And now we're going to play with our hip mobility. Want to keep that weight forward on the front hip. The back hip is off the ground. We're going to reach that hip to the ground without shifting our weight back. So I want to avoid that front knee lifting up off the ground. I want to be leaned forward enough that that front knee stays flush with the ground. We're reaching that back hip back as we inhale, and as we exhale, we're lifting it off the floor and scooping as we reach our hip bone, the bony prominence of the front of the hip, forward. As we reach forward, we're lightly scooping into it. Inhale, we're reaching that hip all the way back down to the floor, again without shifting our weight into it. Exhale, lifting it off the floor and scooping it forward. I want to think about this as a range of motion. Range of motion from can I touch the floor to how far forward can I get, and can I scoop into it, feeling that stretch through the front of the hip. Can I feel that glute tighten up and contract? Not because I'm squeezing it intentionally, but because I'm moving that hip forward and I'm feeling it go into its natural contraction. Doing 5 of these on this side. Again, nice exhale as we draw that navel in, and then we'll slowly move to the other side. Doing the same thing, grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder. Weight is forward on the front hip. Inhale as we reach that hip back without shifting our weight into it. Exhale as we lift, scoop. See if we feel that stretch through the front of the hip. Can we feel that contraction in the rear? How much range of motion do you have on this side compared to the other side? Is one hip a little tighter, more restricted? Do you have less range of motion? As far as functions of our mobility in our hips, if there's a difference on the right side compared to the left side, I want to think about that as a big deal. That's something I want to work on in order to get better balance, because if I lack functional range of motion in one hip compared to the other, that's going to be something that shows up in our gait mechanics, and so that's a big deal. All right, now we're going to start getting into our folds. Going to use the shin as our arrow. Want to keep shoulders square to the shin. Keep the knee as open as you can so that you can stay flush with that knee. Nice inhale, allowing that back hip to drop to the floor. Exhale, that hip comes up to reach forward, and then both hands are going to reach evenly. Again, I want to keep shoulders square to the shin. Hands stay square to the shin. We're seeing how far can we reach both hands. Inhale, we're bringing it back up and allowing that back hip to reach to the floor again. Again, I don't want that reach to lift that front knee. I don't want to shift. I want to see if we can find that mobility through the hips to reach without changing our body position. As we fold on our exhale, I want to keep the spine nice and tall. As we reach, I don't want to drop the head or round the back, the spine, and the shoulders. Keeping the spine tall. Exhale as we slide those hands forward. Inhale as we come back. Again, hip reaches to the floor. Exhale, scoop, and fold. With each one, we're seeing if we can fold a little bit further. And each one that we come back, we're seeing if we can reach that hip a little bit further, closer to the ground. After 5 on this side, we're going to come back to the other side, and we're going to do the same thing. Again, shin is our arrow. I want to keep the shoulders square to that shin, hands reaching evenly through the shin. Inhale, allowing that back hip to reach to the floor without shifting our weight. Exhale, scoop as we reach that hip forward, and then nice long spine as we fold, reaching forward through the hands. Inhale, letting it drop. Exhale, scoop and fold. With each one, seeing if we can get just a little bit deeper into that fold without forcing it, without going into pain. Once we get 5 on both sides, we're going to start to go back and forth. Nice windshield wiper, keeping the feet in contact with the floor. As we come to the other side, nice exhale as we reach and fold. Inhale as we come up. Exhale as we start our transition. Inhale as we finish our transition. Exhale as we fold to the other side. As we're going side to side, really start to, pay attention to how does this feel in the right hip compared to the left hip. Are there any catches, any areas where it feels a little clunky, where it doesn't transition smoothly, where it feels a little tighter in the front of the hip or a little tighter in the back of the hip on one side? Once you get about 3 to 5 reps on each side, we're going to start to slowly slide that back leg. We're going to open up our shin box. At this point, we don't need to follow the shin quite as much. I want you to think explore. We can reach forward, we can reach through the shin, we can reach through the knee, or we can reach behind the knee. So you have room to kind of explore and see what feels good and juicy. Wherever you go on the right side, we're going to bring it back and we're going to do the same movement on the left side. Slightly opening that knee up, feeling that nice fold as we exhale. Good smooth transition as we move from one side to the other. And with each one, we're going to see if we can slowly open that back hip up a little bit more. I want to do about 10 total reps side to side. And we are slowly opening that back leg up until we get closer and closer to what we would consider a yoga class pigeon pose. I'm not overly concerned about getting how far, getting into that full end range pose, unless it's a position that you can get into easily and comfortably. If it is a position that you struggle with, then we're going to work to see how close we can get to it without forcing it. Taking our time, I want to make sure we are moving with the speed of our inhale and our exhale. By moving slowly, using our breath, one of the things I like to pay attention to is getting into movements where all of a sudden it creates a restriction in our breath. We feel tightness in our breath. If you're feeling that tightness, that means you slow down a little bit more and see if you can figure out how far you can move into it without that restriction in your breath. If you slow down, sometimes just slowing will allow you to get a little bit further without quite so much of that tension in the breathing apparatus. And then your breath actually becomes that inhale breath creates a mobility stretch that actually opens up that breath pathway within that position. At this point, we're kind of getting into the deepest range of this that we comfortably can. Again, without pain and without forcing it. Notice the difference. How does it feel right side compared to the left side. My right side glute and low back are tighter than my left side today. I have considerably more access on the left side than I do on the right side. All right, so now we're going to shift onto our back, feet flat to the floor, knees bent. We're gonna do some crocodile breath to start. So I'm making nice big C shapes with the hands. Hands are gonna go below the rib cage, above the hip bone, getting into that nice meaty section of the abdominal wall. Thumbs are pressing into the low back musculature. Index fingers are wrapping around into the abdominal musculature, and palms are pressing into the side body space. I want to get a nice grip into that abdominal musculature in order to create resistance for our inhale. And on our inhale, I want to imagine we're breathing in and we're trying to inflate that abdominal wall like it's a balloon. So I want to feel that pressure expand into the belly, into the low back, into our thumbs, and out through the sides into our palms, all at the same time. See if you can feel that expansion moving in all directions on your inhale. When you exhale, full exhale, pushing that belly button into your spine. Imagine your belly button is a thumb trying to press your spine down into the floor. We'll get a good 5, 6 deep breaths in. With each inhale, see if you can expand the wall of that balloon a little bit bigger. Can you feel a little bit of stretch associated with your inhale, especially in the low back space? Can you feel some stretch in that area? Get a nice inhale, inflates the balloon. Exhale, thumb, it's like or belly button is like a thumb, pressing the spine down, flattening it into the floor. We can relax our hands, bringing them palms up. We're going to continue with that breath. Feel that expansion of the abdominal wall on the inhale. Feel that belly button flatten the spine on the exhale. And now we're going to add in some pelvic tilts. As you inhale, allow your pelvis to tilt up, reach up to the ceiling, lifting your belly off the floor, getting a big sway in the low back. The higher it goes, you should be able to slide a hand underneath your low back. As you exhale, we're pushing that belly button, again, like it's a thumb, flattening out the spine. I want to feel the vertebrae press into the floor at the same time that we're scooping at the pelvis. I don't want this scoop to come by pushing through the feet. So if you feel your tailbone lifting off the floor because you got pressure going through the feet, take the feet out of it. See if you can soften them up. Don't let them do the movement. The movement is really coming from that belly button drawing in and the scoop that comes in from that low core abdominal musculature. Inhale, lift that belly, feel that inhale stretch. Exhale, thumb pressing down through the spine. As you're doing this, notice shoulders and neck and head. Make sure that the shoulders aren't rounding up, head not lifting off the floor. I want to feel that the shoulders stay soft and relaxed. All this movement is being generated just through that abdominal core section. Now we're going to start working on peeling the spine off the floor, starting at the sacrum. On our inhale, belly's lifted, pelvis is tilted forward. On our exhale, we're getting that light scoop, pressing the belly down, and then we're going to continue to scoop. At this point, our feet will be engaged into the floor, and I want to imagine that we're trying to peel the spine one vertebrae at a time off the floor, starting with the sacrum. So as we exhale, scoop, The sacrum is going to lift, but I want to see if we can keep that low L5 vertebrae still touching. Then we're going to lift the L5, seeing if we can keep the L4 touching. And then L3, L2, L1. As we get up into our hip extension, I want to continue to scoop that tailbone up to the ceiling. Can you feel that stretch through the front of the hips? Can you feel your glutes start to engage? On the inhale, we're going to let it back down one vertebrae at a time. L1 touches, L2 touches, L3, L4, L5, and then sacrum, and then allowing that belly to lift, getting into that big sway in the back. Exhale, thumb pushes that spine, and then we're peeling the tailbone off the floor one vertebrae at a time. On the inhale breath, as we're bringing it back down, it may feel really difficult to feel the L3, L4, and L5 touching, and that's because we have a natural lordotic curve, and so they're not really in a great position. It'll be very, very difficult, especially if your low back mobility is poor. This is part of the reason we're working on this, is to improve that low back mobility. So over time, you may get to where you can feel enough mobility in the spine that you can feel that segmental drop, one vertebrae at a time, especially through those lower vertebrae. On the next one, as we scoop and we get to the top, I want to stay at the top. We're staying in this nice hip extended position. Glutes are engaged. We're going to come back to our breath and doing our pelvic tilts, but we're doing pelvic tilts maintaining this nice hip bridge or hip drive position. So on our inhale, filling up that belly, pelvis tilts forward, getting some sway in the low back. Exhale, drawing that navel into the spine like a thumb pushing down as we scoop. Inhale, tilts us forward. Exhale, getting that nice scoop. Doing about 5 to 6 breaths. As we inhale, try not to let your hips drop. Try to keep the hips at the same height. There's just a rotational tilt taking place from this height. Inhale, pelvis tilts forward. Exhale, pelvis tilts back posterior. Getting that nice scoop. I want to feel that core engaged. Rib cage should be dropping as we scoop. On our inhale, rib cage is going to flare. We'll let the hips back down. The better we're able to get into that, you should feel your glutes kind of light up on fire by the end. All right, we're now going to shift into our quadruped position, getting onto hands and knees. Gonna spread hands nice and wide, palms are directly underneath the shoulders, extending the elbows fully without locking. We're also tucking in the toes, specifically the big toe. I want to feel that big toe kind of locked in. We're going to start with a little bit of big toe mobility. Inhale, we're kind of rocked forward. On our exhale, we're letting our hips sink back into the heels, and I want to feel the weight of those hips specifically load into that big toe joint so that we get a little bit of a stretch into that big toe and into the arch of the foot. Inhale, we're coming back forward, taking that load off. Exhale, sinking back hips to heels. Now, as we sink hips to heels, imagine you have a tail and you're trying to stick that tail straight up to the ceiling as you're sinking your hips back to the heels. I want to avoid getting a little bit of a butt wink, getting a scoop where we get rounded in the low back as we sink back. I want to keep that tailbone up, which is going to give us a little bit more sway in the back, but it should also Feel that a little bit more stretch, mobilization at the big toe joint. Notice if the right big toe feels a little tighter than the left big toe. After about 5 to 10, we're going to turn the heels out and away, and we're going to feel load all the way underneath to the pinky toes. So I want to get all the other 4 toes tucked underneath. Doing the same thing. Inhale forward, exhale as we rock back, sticking that tail up into the ceiling. Inhale as we come back forward. Exhale as we sink our hips back to heels. After about 5 to 10, we're going to come back to our starting point. We're going to get a little bit of tension into the feet, and we're going to start to do some windshield wipers through the heels, letting the heels roll from pinky toe all the way to the big toe, like you're trying to touch the heels together, and then rolling back out to the pinky toes. As you're doing this, you can slowly start to sink the hips a little deeper in order to create more tension and stretch through the arch of the feet. Notice, how does this feel on the right foot compared to the left foot? Is it tighter, more restricted in certain areas? Where exactly do you feel that tightness and restriction? Good. We're going to come back up to our starting point. And now we're going to get back into our breath, and we're going to do some pelvic tilts similar to what we just did when laying on our back. So spread hands, grounded palms, extended elbows. I want to bring that breath into the belly. Nice crocodile breath. Feel that abdominal wall expanding out. Exhale, drawing that navel in. I want to continue to feel that belly button like it's a thumb pushing into the spine, but now it's pushing up towards the ceiling. Inhale, that belly can reach down towards the floor. And as you do this, you'll notice there's a little bit of movement in your tailbone, in your pelvis. And we're going to go ahead and accentuate that and get into some pelvic tilts. So as we inhale, allow that pelvis to turn down towards the floor, getting a nice big sway in the low back. I want to make sure we're avoiding any kind of pinch or pain. And on the exhale, pull that belly button like it's pushing your spine up to the floor, and we're scooping the tailbone. I don't want to get into a full cat-cow. We're not arching the upper back just yet. I want to keep the upper back nice and still. Only want to move at the tailbone. Inhale, see how far you can tilt that tailbone, that pelvis forward without pinch or pain. Exhale, how much scoop can you get without taking the low back into pinch or pain in this direction? If you have some significant tightness and restriction in that low back area, then cat-cow, this kind of pelvic tilt mobility work is something I would encourage you to do throughout the day. You can do it quadruped, you can do it on your back, you can do it in your chair, you can do it in your car seat, you can do it standing in line at the grocery store. These are going to be really beneficial movements to help prevent low back pain. As you're starting to feel that low back mobilize, we're going to get into the rest of the wave of the spine. I want to, similar to what we did on the floor, on our inhale, pelvis goes forward. On our exhale, we're scooping. And now we're going to keep scooping, and we're going to allow that movement to move up the spine one vertebrae at a time. So as it scoops, move that spine up to the upper back. As it gets to the shoulders, we are pressing into the palms It's going to continue to go over the top of our head. Now we're trying to touch our tailbone to our forehead at this imaginary point in the middle. See if you can feel some stretch at the base of the skull all the way to the tailbone, like one nice long continuous stretch. Inhale, we're bringing it all the way back. Head comes up last. Again, I want to see if we can feel this moving segmentally through the spine. So exhale, scoop. As we scoop, it moves up the spine like a wave. The head scoops last, feeling that, trying to touch tailbone to forehead. See if you can feel your core light up on fire. Inhale, pelvis tilts to the floor one vertebrae at a time. As it moves up to the chest, the sternum reaches to the floor and the head comes up last. See how smooth can you get through that wave where the movement is being generated from the tailbone. And notice any areas, any segments of the spine where that movement either feels restricted, feels tight, doesn't want to go. Maybe everything moves all at once and it's hard to feel the individual segments. If you're feeling that, then I want you to slow it down even more. Good. Now we're going to bring hands forward. I want to try to keep the hips over the knees. If you have some shoulder instability, shoulder pain, then it's okay to let the hips come back. I want to make sure that we're not pushing into any kind of pain in the shoulders. I want to make sure the toes are staying tucked underneath as well. So hands are spread wide. I want to have downward pressure through the hands. I want elbows to be actively straight. I want to think like gecko-like hands. Our hands are sticky to the floor. They're pressing down. They will not slide out. As we exhale, we're dropping our chest down to the floor. Inhale, we're coming back up. On our exhale, as we drop our chest to the floor, I want to lightly scoop that tailbone underneath. We're getting that little bit of tuck through that tailbone as we drop our chest to the floor. Inhale, we can get that sway in the back at the top so that we have room to scoop as we exhale. And with each one, we're seeing if we can drop that chest a little bit deeper. Again, downward pressure through the hands. How does this feel in that shoulder area, specifically around the armpit area? Does the right side feel tighter and more restricted than the left? Once we get 5 to 10 reps, on the next exhale, as we drop down, I want to stay down in light tension. This does not have to be maximum tension. From here, I want to push through the hands, but since my hands are stuck to the floor, it's going to slide my hips back and the shoulder blades are going to reach up to our ears, getting nice and long from the tailbone to our fingertips. And then as we inhale, we're going to pull, and it's going to slide our spine forward. Feel the shoulder blades slide down the rib cage. Keep the elbows actively straight. The elbows should not bend on this in either direction. Exhale as we push. Inhale as we pull. See if you can isolate that shoulder movement, the shoulder blades sliding up and down. Elbows should stay isolated, straight, extended, not bending. We still have downward pressure through our hands. This should feel pretty active at the level of our shoulder blades and our rib cage. like where shoulder blades are working hard in order to maintain stability. We can inhale as we slowly come out of that. And we can shake the shoulders out just a little bit. We're going to come back, right back into that position here in just a little bit to get into our bear. So, coming back to quadruped, spreading hands nice and wide, toes got to be tucked. We're now going to lift the knees off the floor. I want to keep the knees bent. Again, got that downward pressure through the hands. So we're going to slightly drop that chest, pressing down. This is similar to the position we were just in. So we were just in that kind of deep child's pose position. I want to see if we can find that same position for our shoulders, but with our knees off the floor. So reaching that chest as deep as you comfortably and safely can. Keeping the knees bent to start with. Once we find that range, we're going to do gas pedals with the heels. I'm reaching my right heel and actively straightening that knee while my left knee is soft and bent. Then I'm going to switch, bending my right knee as I extend that left, reaching the heel to the floor, actively straightening that knee like I'm trying to reach the knee to the wall behind me. Going back and forth, doing nice little gas pedal action through the heels. I want to go slow here. See if you feel the stretch isolated either like in the calf, back of the knee, or up in the thigh. Then slow it down and see if you can feel one long continuous stretch from the bottom of your foot all the way up to your hip. Can you feel all of it stretching together? It might take a few reps to get there. The slower we go, generally, the better. And we'll bring the knees back down to the floor. And we're going to change into our inverted position. So, inverted sit. Knees are bent. Hands are coming down to around the hips, maybe slightly behind the hips. And we're going to start with some elbow spirals, getting into some inverted cat-cow. So, I want to start with letting those elbow pits spiral out and away. I want to let that open the chest, feeling the shoulder blades drop down the rib cage, elevating our spine, getting really tall. And then we're going to internally spiral the elbow pits so they turn into our bodies. That causes that rounding of the shoulders as the shoulders start to move up towards our ears. Get more of a rounded back. Inhale as we externally spiral, getting nice and tall. Exhale as we spiral internally, rounded upper back. I also want to feel that pelvis scoop so that we get that rounding all the way to the low back. Inhale, getting nice and tall. Spiral out. See if you can feel that stretch across the upper chest on the inhale. On the exhale, can you feel that stretch across the upper back, between the shoulder blades, and down into the lower back? On the next inhale, as we get tall and open chest, we're going to stay tall. At this point, we can do a cross-legged sit if that's more comfortable, but I want to maintain this downward pressure through the palms, spiraled out action, open chest. I want to really avoid rounded shoulders, rounded upper back. I want to get as open and downwardly pressed as possible. Feel the top of your head, the back of the top of your head, lifting up and reaching to the ceiling. From here, we're going to do a little bit of light neck mobility, starting by checking our blind spots. Slow exhale as we look over our right shoulder. Inhale as we come to the center, and exhale as we slowly look over the left shoulder. And I want to really reach from our chin. I want to see how far can you get your chin over the edge of your shoulder. And how far do you go when you try to reach that chin over the right shoulder? How far are you able to go when you reach that chin over the left shoulder? Does one side feel tighter than the other? More restricted? Do you have less range of motion? Make sure you're going slow with the breath. Nice slow inhale, nice slow exhale. That way we can really squeeze into that end range without forcing it. Next, we're going to get into our tilt and lift. So very lightly letting the head tilt like you're dropping one ear towards the shoulder, but I don't want to drop it super deep. This is just a light drop. Then opposite ear, we're lifting it up like we're trying to touch the ceiling, or like you got a piece of string pulling that ear up. As you exhale, we're lifting. Inhale, bringing it back to center. Exhale as we go to the other side and lift. Now as you lift through that ear, same side palm can press down into the floor in order to create a little bit more traction in that mobility stretch. Notice if this is harder to do on one side compared to the other. Does one side feel tighter, more restricted? Do you get more of a stretch on one side and less of a stretch on the other? If you're feeling that, then see if you can slow it down even more. So kind of isolate, where does that stretch exist on both sides? Can I make this feel more similar than dissimilar? Good. Next, we're going to get into our shallow neck roll. Dropping chin down to the chest. We're very lightly going to let the right ear reach towards the right shoulder. Gaze comes up to the ceiling, and then left ear to the left shoulder as our chin drops back down to the chest. And we're going to continue those 4 points. Shoulder, gaze goes up, opposite shoulder, chin to chest. But as you're doing it, go slow and see if you can start to smooth those 4 corners out into a circle. And then see if you can slowly move a little deeper into that shoulder without pain, without stress, without discomfort. If you feel some crackliness in the neck, as long as it is not painful, I want to think about we're going in and trying to de-crackle the crackle. I want to kind of get in there safely, non-forcefully, non-painfully. Seeing if we can get a little bit more smoothness and flow into the neck. Once we get 5 to 10 in one direction, we're going to switch directions. Again, starting shallow, so chin to chest, left ear to the left shoulder, gaze comes up to the ceiling, right ear to the right shoulder, and then chin back down to chest. And then from here, very slowly, smoothing those 4 points out. Seeing if we can get a little deeper into that range, again, without pain, without force, non-stressful. The slower we go on this, the better. When working with the neck, one of the ways I want to think about this is no matter how slow you are going, you can always go slower. Good. All right, so we're going to go ahead and bring feet back out in front, and we're going to place them flat to the floor. We're staying in our inverted position. We're going to come back to playing with those elbow spirals. So as we exhale, elbows are spiraling in. We're getting nice rounded back. Exhale, spiraling elbows out and away, feeling those shoulder blades pack down and back. Kind of get that feel. Exhale, scoops. Inhale gets us tall. Now, we're going to start to work on lifting the hips off the floor. But real important for this lift is I have to be able to maintain external spiral of those elbows, shoulders packed. If the shoulder blades start to round forward as we lift, then I don't want you to lift. I want you to maintain that position. You can put pressure through the feet and kind of feel the hips almost lift. And you're saying, how high can you push into the feet to lift without losing the shoulders? And however high you can go without losing the shoulders is as high as you can go on this. I want to build that stability in the shoulders by doing low reps, keeping the hips close to the floor, but maintaining good position of the shoulders. You're going to develop that posterior shoulder strength, which will slowly allow you to lift higher. So I want to really pay attention to packed shoulders. Can you maintain it? From here, we're exhaling as we lift and scoop the tailbone up to the ceiling. I'm not concerned with how high at first. Inhale, we're bringing it all the way back down, resting the hips. Exhale as we continue to spiral, rounding the low back and upper back. Inhale as we externally spiral. Exhale as we start to lift. And with each one, we're seeing, can we lift a little higher without losing the position of our shoulders? Inhale as we let it back down. Exhale as we spiral and round the back. Inhale as we extend the spine, opening up the chest. Exhale as we lift and scoop. And we're slowly scooping that tailbone up higher and higher if we can, as long as you can maintain your good shoulder position. If you're able to get all the way up into this nice tabletop position, then I want to continue to scoop the tailbone. Feel the glutes active and continue to externally spiral the elbows as you press and lift the sternum a little higher to the ceiling. Inhale as we let it all back down. Exhale as we spiral and press. Go ahead and bring our shoulders off the floor, roll it out, let the wrist have a little bit of a break, and we're going to finish with the last thing, getting into our kind of long, our plank, working on kind of like our climbers and our plank position, or mountain climbers. I'm not going to be overly concerned with ideal position in our plank. I want to think about this as an exploration. I want to make sure that we have good shoulder stability and that we're able to keep our hips elevated high. I don't want our hips dropping I don't want to get really low back extended where our hips are kind of dropping and we're getting into this hyper curve in our low back. I don't want to have that over sway. So we're going to have hands spread, grounded underneath the shoulders, bringing knees off the floor, and we're going to step back into our plank position. From here, we're going to lift one foot and we're going to very slowly slide that foot and see how high can we bring it up. And if you can, see if you can bring your heel to the floor. Then we're going to let it slide back, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm seeing how much range of motion do you have with control of your core. What I want to avoid is throwing that foot up and throwing that foot back. I'm less concerned with how high or how far you're able to travel with that foot. I'm more concerned with how well you are able to control it, moving it slowly. How far do you go with good control? That's your starting point. And you'll find as we do this, it'll open up more and more. So as we get that foot planted, we can start to play with some other things. So we're going to come to one side. I got my left leg forward. Heel is planted. It does not need to be all the way up at your feet. From here, we're letting a knee soften and drop to the floor. Then as we're going to work to lift the knee like you're trying to touch the ceiling with your knee, and reach down through the heel like you're trying to touch the wall behind you. And at the same time, we can start to drop the opposite hip, like you're reaching that opposite hip to the floor, while you're at the same time lifting that knee to the ceiling. Inhale, let the knee soften. You can lift that opposite hip. Exhale, reach the knee up as you reach the heel away and dropping the opposite hip. The more we're able to get that lift through the knee as we drop that hip, you should feel some stretch through the front of that hip. We'll do 5 of these. Nice lengthening of that knee, reaching through the heel as you drop the hip. If you need to take a break before we go to the other side, it's okay to drop back down to the knees. Give your wrists and shoulders a break. And then we'll come back into it and do the same thing on the other side. Slow, bringing that foot up high as you comfortably can. Get that heel grounded to the floor. Back knee is softening and bending as you lightly lift your hip. And then as we exhale, we're lifting that knee like we're trying to touch the ceiling, reaching down through the heel like you're trying to touch the wall at your feet, and dropping that opposite hip into the floor. Inhale as you let everything soften, that knee softens, hip lifts. Exhale as you lift that knee, reach the heel, and drop the opposite hip. After 5 of those, we're going to do that going side to side for 5. So slowly bringing one foot up. As you get into position, exhale, lifting that knee, reaching the heel, dropping the hip. Inhale as we soften, bringing that foot back down, moving to the other side. Going back and forth, nice and slow, with control and with breath. Notice if this is harder to do with your right leg, compared to your left leg. Does one side want to go faster? Does it want to throw that leg up there? Is it harder to control? Are you able to go as far? Once we get 5 on each side, coming back to our knees, we're going to roll the wrists out. We're going to come all the way back onto our back. Knees bent, feet flat to the floor, making our nice big crocodile or big C shapes. Thumbs in the back, index fingers in the front for our crocodile breath. Pressing into that abdominal musculature. Nice big inhale. Feel that balloon expand out and away in all directions. Exhale. Draw that navel all the way into the spine. Again, this is where that belly button is like a big thumb, pressing that low back, that spine onto the floor. In your next inhale, you're seeing if you can expand that balloon a little bit wider. We'll get a good 5 to 10 full, slow, full breaths here. Notice your shoulders and your head on the inhale. If you feel them wanting to lift or get tension, then on your exhale, allow it to melt into the floor. You can go ahead and start to let your hands relax down. Continue to feel that expansion through the abdominal wall on the inhale. Navel to spine on the exhale. We can start to bring that breath up into our ribs. Again, same expansion. Feel it expanding up through the chest, out through the sides, and into the upper back. We can bring that breath up into our shoulders, into our neck. Same concept, like we're blowing up a balloon. Feel that expansion. Breathing into any tension, and then on the exhale, allowing that tension to melt into the floor, letting it go. Feel your body completely soften and give on that exhale. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and very slowly get up. Before you sit or stand, make sure you're not dizzy or lightheaded.